Using FileMaker's layout tools is fairly straightforward once you get used to a few basic design principles. If you've used desktop publishing or layout programs in the past, some of the techniques will seem familiar, because FileMaker's layout mode provides a design surface that allows you to create layouts that, if you will, publish your data to screens, lists, summaries and printed output. Using the Notes layout as an example, I'd like to walk you through a few of the tools and techniques. First of all, in layout mode, if the window is too narrow, the layout toolset won't appear in the status toolbar. So if that happens to you, just make the window a bit wider by dragging the lower left corner of the window until the toolset appears on the status toolbar. And of course, in the event that the status toolbar is hidden, you'll have to show it first to get access to the tools. You can do that by choosing the status toolbar command from the View menu, like so, or by clicking on the toolbar icon near the lower left of the window along the bottom border. In layout mode, as well as the familiar button and slider at the left of the status toolbar, you'll see a couple of icons on the toolbar. First of all, the new layout icon to create a new layout or report, and over at the far right, the Manage icon, which gives access to the various Manage dialogues. In between, there are a host of interesting looking tool buttons. The layout tool that you'll generally find gets the most use is the Selection tool at the left of the group of tools. It's the first in line with an icon representing a mouse pointer. By default, the Selection tool is active the first time you enter layout mode after launching FileMaker. But if you choose a different tool, it'll remain active for the current file until you use it, make a different choice, or close the file. When I'm choosing a different tool, say the Rectangle tool, a single click temporarily makes the tool active, but if I double-click a tool icon, it will remain active until I specifically choose a different tool. With the Selection tool active, I can select and manipulate existing objects on the layout. For example, if I click on the Note ID field, you'll see that it acquires a highlight around it to indicate that it's selected, and boxes on each of the corners and in the middle of each side. If I drag one of the boxes, the size of the selected object changes. If I drag one of the corners, both the vertical and horizontal size changes. With an object such as the Note ID field selected, if I hold the Shift key down while clicking on another object, say the Reference ID field, both objects become selected, and you can see that not only are they both surrounded by the highlight glow, but the selection boxes are appearing on the outer corners and outer sides of both fields taken as a group. Now, if I drag one of the side rectangles, both fields will enlarge horizontally or vertically, and the enlargement is proportional. If I drag one of the corner rectangles, both fields proportionally enlarge, both horizontally and vertically. With more than one object selected, if I hold the Shift key down while clicking on one of the existing objects within the selection, it becomes unselected, leaving any other objects still selected. So using the Shift key and clicking on objects allows you to control what's included in the selection and what's not on an object-by-object basis. Also, if I move the mouse away from the objects on the layout and click and then drag, a selection rectangle is drawn, and every object that the rectangle touches becomes selected. Alternatively, if I hold down the Command key on macOS or the Control key on Windows, only those objects that are totally enclosed within the selection box I draw become selected. If I click in an area where there are no objects, any objects that are selected become unselected or deselected. To the right of the Selection tool on the status toolbar, there's a group of 5 tool buttons that allow you to add passive objects to your layout. Text, lines, rectangular or square boxes, rounded rectangles, and ovals or circles. If I click on the Rectangle tool, drag across an area of the layout, a rectangle is created between the starting and ending points of my mouse drag. So I can create a number of objects that are graphical objects, if you like, to adorn the layout. If I select a group of objects, such as the objects I've just created, I can change their size by dragging, using the selection boxes on the sides or corners, or I can choose commands such as cut, copy or clear to copy the objects to the clipboard or remove them from the layout. The next group of buttons on the status toolbar adds elements that interact with the database or that can be used to control the application in some way. The first of these is the Field Control tool. You can use it to create a new field on the layout. So if I select that tool and drag across an area, FileMaker prompts me to choose which field should be added to the layout. You'll notice that FileMaker also automatically includes a text label for the field at the left of the field box. Now with the label and field that I've just added selected, I'll press the Delete key on the keyboard to remove them from the layout. Next up on the status toolbar is the Button tool that you can use to create a button that the user can click on to perform an action or command. Then there's the Tab Control tool that will allow you to create multiple labelled panels to let you choose between different content in a given area of the layout. Then there's the Portal tool, which lets you display a list of related records from another table that's connected to the TO that the current layout is based on. Then there's the Chart tool, which lets you add an object that can display graphs that summarise your data. And last in this group is the Web Viewer tool, which lets you add a panel that will dynamically display content from the World Wide Web, which is effectively like embedding a miniature web browser into your database screen. The fourth group of buttons contains only two tools. These tools are drag tools and work a little differently from the others. What that means is that you drag them onto the layout to add an object to the layout. So if I drag the Field tool onto the layout, a field object is added where I release the mouse button. The second of the tools is the Part tool. It allows me to add a layout part to the current layout by dragging to the position that I want to create the part boundary in. More on layout parts later, but for the moment I'll just say that each layout may be composed of a header, body and footer part and other optional parts, and the Part tool provides you with an easy way to add them to the current layout. Then at the far right of the tools, there's a tool that's different from all the rest. It's called the Format Painter. When you have an object selected, let's say one of the fields, if I then click on the Format Painter and then click on another object on the layout, the style and formats of the previously selected object are applied as a group to the object that I've just clicked on. And it's useful to know that in layout mode there are multiple levels of undo, so I can step back through those last actions if they weren't ones that I want to perform. So taken as a group, the tools that appear on the status toolbar in layout mode, plus the overhead menus, enable you to create and edit all of the various kinds of objects that go to make up a screen or report that presents and allows you to interact with your data.